coffin was breathing. Not metaphorically, not imagination. Every night at exactly midnight, the lid would rise just slightly, then fall again, slow, heavy, like lungs struggling for air. But when they opened it, there was nothing inside. No body, no bones, not even the scent of death. Only silence, until the third night. That was when someone finally heard it. A voice, weak, barely human. Save me. It didn't come from the room. It didn't echo through the walls. It came from the coffin. By the time Jian Mo arrived, the villagers had already sealed the place, too afraid to go near it again. They said the coffin didn't just move anymore. It was breathing faster, like something inside was panicking. Like something inside was running out of time. Jian Mo had dealt with spirits, curses, and things that should never exist. But the moment he stepped closer, he felt it. No cold, no death, only warmth, only life. Something alive was trapped inside that coffin, and whatever it was begging to be freed. The village had already decided the coffin was cursed. It sat alone in a narrow wooden house at the edge of the fields, where the fog never fully lifted, even during the day. No one lived there anymore. No one wanted to. The family who owned the coffin had left in silence after the second night, leaving everything behind except that one thing they were too afraid to take with them. Because the coffin would not stay still. At first, it was subtle, a faint sound in the middle of the night. Wood shifting, a dull, hollow knock from the inside. The kind of noise people tried to ignore, convincing themselves it was just the house settling or the wind slipping through old cracks. But on the second night, someone saw it. The lid moved. Not enough to open, just a slight lift, barely the width of a finger before falling back into place with a soft, heavy thud, again and again, slow, rhythmic, like breathing. By the third night, no one dared to go near it. But fear has a way of spreading faster than truth. Word traveled through the village, twisting with every retelling. Some said it was a restless spirit that refused burial. Others believed something had crawled inside after the funeral. A few whispered that the man buried there had never truly died. That was when they sent for Jian Mo. He arrived just before dusk, when the last light stretched thin across the fields and the air turned unnaturally still. No one greeted him at the house. The villagers stopped at a distance, watching, unwilling to step any closer. Even from outside, Jian Mo could feel it. Not cold. That was the first thing that was wrong. Places touched by death always carried a certain chill, a lingering yin presence, heavy and suffocating. But this place felt different. It was warm, faint but unmistakable, as if something inside was still alive. He stepped through the doorway. The wood creaked under his weight, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. Dust hung in the air, unmoving. At the center of the room, illuminated by a single dying candle, was the coffin. Plain, unmarked, closed, waiting. Jian Mo didn't approach immediately. His eyes scanned the room, his fingers brushing lightly against the talismans at his side. He listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no wind, no insects. Then, a sound. Soft, uneven. He froze. There it was again, a slow inhale followed by a strained exhale. Not coming from the walls, not from beneath the floor, from the coffin. Jian Mo stepped closer this time, each movement deliberate. The air grew heavier with every step, not with death, but with something far more unnatural. Life, trapped. He stopped just inches away from the coffin lid, and then he heard it, a whisper, so faint it barely existed. Save me. Jian Mo did not move immediately. The whisper lingered in the air, thin and fragile, as if it could vanish at any moment. He had heard countless voices before, spirits clinging to the world, echoes of resentment, fragments of unfinished deaths. But this was different. It wasn't filled with hatred. It wasn't distorted by time. It sounded alive. He slowly raised his hand and hovered it just above the coffin lid. For a brief second, nothing happened. Then he felt it. Warmth, not the faint illusion of heat left behind by the living, but something steady, rhythmic, pulsing beneath the wood like a heartbeat struggling to break through. Jian Mo's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible," he murmured under his breath. A coffin was meant to seal death, to contain what no longer belonged to the world of the living. Yin energy should have saturated every inch of it, cold, heavy, unmistakable. But there was no yin here, none at all. Instead, the air was filled with something else entirely. Yang energy, pure, suppressed, trapped. The realization sent a quiet tension through his body. If what he was sensing was real, then this wasn't a haunted coffin. It was something far more dangerous, something that shouldn't exist. He reached into his sleeve and drew out a talisman, pressing it gently against the surface of the wood. The paper trembled slightly the moment it made contact, not reacting to a spirit, but to something resisting from within. The coffin responded. A soft creak echoed through the room. The lid shifted, just a fraction. Jian Mo's gaze sharpened instantly. His instincts screamed at him to step back, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice low and controlled. "Who's inside?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a breath. Closer this time, clearer. "Help." The words scraped against the air like something forced through a throat that barely worked. Jian Mo's hand tightened slightly. This wasn't an echo. This wasn't a remnant. Something inside was conscious, alive. But that only made it worse, because he could also feel something else now, something hidden beneath the surface of that warmth, a distortion, like space itself wasn't behaving the way it should. The closer he stood, the more the world around the coffin felt unstable, as if reality was thinning, as if something inside was pressing outward, not just against the wood, but against the boundary between two different states of existence. Jian Mo placed his palm flat against the lid. The reaction was immediate. The coffin shuddered violently. A deep, hollow sound burst from within, no longer subtle, no longer distant. It was desperate now, urgent. The breathing quickened. Inhale, sharp. Exhale, broken. Again, faster. Again. The entire structure trembled as if whatever was inside had begun to panic. Jian Mo stepped back instinctively this time, his eyes locked onto the coffin as the air around it seemed to warp ever so slightly. The candlelight flickered wildly, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. "This isn't containment," he said quietly. "It's imprisonment." Another violent shift. Crack! A thin line split across the lid. From within, the voice came again, no longer faint, no longer weak. "Let me out!" The coffin jerked upward, not opening, breathing, violently, like something inside had realized time was running out. And then Jian Mo understood. Whatever was trapped in there wasn't supposed to stay contained, and whatever force was keeping it inside was starting to fail. Jian Mo exhaled slowly, forcing his mind to settle despite the rising instability in the room. Panic would get him killed. Whatever was happening inside that coffin was not a simple haunting. There was no resentment, no curse residue, no trace of death energy at all. And yet, something was clearly trapped inside, struggling, breathing, thinking. That contradiction alone meant one thing. This was a constructed phenomenon, a deliberate act. He reached into his sleeve again, this time pulling out 3 talismans instead of 1. Each was inscribed with different seals, one to detect spiritual presence, one to stabilize energy flow, and one to reveal distortions in space. If this was not a ghost, then it had to obey some other set of rules. "Let's see what you really are," Jian Mo whispered. He stepped forward and placed the first talisman directly onto the coffin lid. Nothing. No reaction. The paper didn't burn, didn't darken, didn't respond in any way, which confirmed it. No spirit. His voice was calm, but his eyes sharpened. He placed the second talisman. This time the reaction was immediate. A faint ripple spread across the surface of the coffin, like a stone dropped into invisible water. The air tightened. The candle flame bent unnaturally toward the coffin as if pulled by an unseen force. Inside, the breathing hitched, then resumed, faster, more erratic. Jian Mo frowned slightly. Energy circulation is disrupted, he murmured. The yang energy inside wasn't just present, it was being compressed, forced into a confined state, unable to disperse naturally. Like air sealed inside a shrinking container, like something alive, suffocating without dying. That shouldn't be possible, not under any natural law. Which meant the third talisman. Jian Mo hesitated for the first time, because he already knew what it might reveal. Slowly, he pressed it onto the coffin. For a brief moment, everything went still. Then, the world shifted. The edges of the room blurred, as if reality itself had slipped out of alignment. The walls stretched slightly, then snapped back. The candlelight fractured into multiple overlapping shadows, and the coffin was no longer entirely there. Jian Mo's pupils contracted. He could still see it, but not completely. Parts of it flickered, phasing in and out of existence like it was overlapping with something else. Something just slightly out of reach. A spatial overlap, he said quietly. Now it made sense. This wasn't just a coffin sitting in a room. It was a point of intersection, two spaces occupying the same coordinates, one real, not, and whatever was inside was trapped in the other side. A low, strained voice broke through again. Please, I can't breathe. Jian Mo's expression hardened. That wasn't metaphorical. The breathing he had heard, the rising and falling of the lid, it wasn't the coffin moving on its own. It was a reflection, a physical echo of something happening in that other space, which meant the situation was far worse than he initially thought. If the connection between the two spaces collapsed completely, whatever was inside would not simply die, it would be erased. Not body, not soul, both, gone, without ever having truly existed in either place. Jian Mo moved quickly now. He circled the coffin, his fingers lightly brushing along its edges, searching for irregularities, for anchor points, for anything that might explain how this spatial overlap had been created. Then he felt it, a mark, carved into the underside of the lid, so faint it was almost invisible. He pushed the coffin slightly, just enough to shift its angle and expose the inner edge. There, a symbol, not a burial marking, not protective, something else entirely. A binding seal. But it wasn't meant to keep something out. It was designed to keep something in. Jian Mo's gaze darkened. This was intentional. The breathing inside suddenly spiked, rapid, desperate, almost violent. The coffin began to tremble again, stronger than before. The air around it warped visibly now, bending light, distorting sound. The boundary between the two overlapping spaces was destabilizing. Cracks began to form. Not in the wood, but in reality itself. Jian Mo stepped back, his mind racing. If he broke the seal improperly, the two spaces could collapse into each other. If he did nothing, the trapped person would vanish. There was no safe option left, only timing, only precision. Inside the coffin, the voice screamed now, raw, breaking, no longer able to hold itself together. Get me out! The lid jolted upward violently, and this time it didn't fall back down immediately. Jian Mo's eyes widened slightly, because for a split second, he saw inside. Not darkness, not emptiness, but a distorted figure, stretching, twisting, as if being pulled apart across two different worlds at once. The lid slammed shut, silence, then one final inhale, sharp, fragile, on the verge of stopping. Jian Mo closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, cold, focused, resolved. There's only one way in, he said, and no guarantee I'll come back out. The coffin trembled beneath his gaze, waiting. The room fell into a silence so complete it felt unnatural, like the world itself was holding its breath. Jian Mo stood motionless before the coffin, every instinct sharpened to its limit. The trembling had stopped. The breathing had stopped. That was worse. Moments ago, something inside had been struggling, fighting, clawing, begging to survive. Now, nothing. No sound, no movement, no presence. It was as if whatever had been inside had suddenly given up, or worse, had been taken. Jian Mo's fingers tightened around the remaining talisman in his hand. His gaze didn't leave the coffin for even a second. This isn't over, he said quietly. The air shifted, not violently, not suddenly, but subtly, like a pressure change before a storm. The candle flame, which had been flickering wildly moments ago, straightened, perfectly still. Then it bent, not toward the coffin, but toward Jian Mo. His pupils contracted instantly. Too late, a force erupted from behind him. Invisible, yet undeniable. It struck without sound, without warning, slamming into his back with crushing weight. Jian Mo staggered forward, barely catching himself against the coffin as the air behind him distorted violently, folding inward like something tearing through space itself. This isn't just a prison. The realization hit him mid-breath. It's hunting. The coffin wasn't merely containing something. It was connected to something else, something aware, something that had just noticed him. The temperature dropped, not into the cold of death, but into something far more unnatural, a hollow absence, as if the warmth of life itself was being drained out of the space. Jian Mo turned slowly. The room behind him no longer looked the same. The walls stretched into impossible angles. The doorway seemed farther away than it should be. Shadows pooled where there should have been none, gathering into shapes that didn't quite exist. And at the center of it, a distortion, not a figure, not a spirit, a tear. Reality itself was opening. Jian Mo's breathing slowed deliberately, forcing control back into his body. "Whatever you are," he said under his breath, "you're not supposed to cross over." The distortion pulsed. Then it moved, not forward, but outward, expanding. The space between Jian Mo and the coffin warped violently as invisible pressure surged through the room. The floor beneath his feet cracked, not physically, but perceptually, like layers of reality were peeling apart. A sound followed. Not a scream, not a voice. Something deeper. A resonance that didn't travel through the air, but through him. Jian Mo flinched despite himself. That thing, it wasn't trying to attack his body. It was reaching for something else, his soul. The talisman in his hand ignited instantly. Flames burst to life without warning, reacting to the intrusion. Jian Mo slammed it forward, pressing it into the air between himself and the expanding distortion. Break! The fire exploded outward. For a brief moment, the world snapped back into place. The walls straightened, the shadows recoiled, the pressure lifted, but only for a second. Then the coffin behind him moved, not a gentle rise, not a slow breath. It jerked upward violently, the lid slamming open with a deafening crack. A force surged out from within and grabbed him. Jian Mo didn't see it. He felt it, cold and hot at the same time, solid and formless. It wrapped around his body, locking his limbs in place before he could react. Then it pulled hard. The world flipped. The room shattered into fragments of light and shadow as Jian Mo was dragged backward, straight into the coffin. There was no transition, no moment to resist. 1 second he was standing, the next he was falling. But there was no ground, no direction, no sense of up or down. Only motion, violent, endless motion through a space that refused to exist. Jian Mo's vision blurred as fragments of something flashed around him, broken images repeating over and over again. A man gasping for air, hands clawing at nothing, a coffin lid that never fully opened. Again, a loop. He was inside the loop. Jian Mo forced his focus through the chaos, his mind locking onto one realization. This is the space, the trapped moment, the prison. But now it wasn't just holding the victim, it had pulled him in too. The motion stopped, abruptly. Jian Mo slammed into solid ground, or what felt like it. He caught himself instantly, dropping into a low stance as his eyes snapped upward. The world around him stabilized, barely. He was back in the room, but not the real one. Everything looked the same, the walls, the candle, the coffin. Except now it was wrong. The light didn't move naturally. The shadows lagged behind objects. The air felt thick, resistant, like breathing through something unseen. And at the center of the room, the coffin stood open. Slowly, something inside it moved. Jian Mo didn't move this time, didn't speak, didn't breathe, because now he understood. He hadn't just entered the prison. He had entered the moment, just before it broke. A hand emerged from the coffin, twisted, unnatural, stretching further than it should. Then another. The figure began to pull itself upward, but its body didn't follow correctly. Parts of it lagged behind, as if it existed in multiple positions at once. Its head lifted last, and when it did, it looked directly at Jian Mo, its mouth opened. But the voice that came out was not the same one that had begged for help. It was layered, broken, overlapping with something else. You shouldn't be here. The space around them trembled violently. The loop was destabilizing, and whatever controlled it had finally revealed itself. For a moment, nothing moved. Jian Mo remained perfectly still, his eyes locked onto the figure emerging from the coffin. The air in this place, this fractured imitation of reality, felt thick and resistant, like every breath had to be forced through an invisible barrier. This was not the real world, but it wasn't an illusion either. It was something far more dangerous, a moment extracted from time and forced to repeat. The figure in front of him twitched, not naturally, not like a living person regaining control of their body, but like something trying to remember how to move. Its arm jerked forward, then snapped back to its previous position. Again and again, a loop. Jian Mo's gaze sharpened as he observed the pattern. Every motion the figure made was slightly delayed, slightly misaligned, like multiple versions of the same action were overlapping but failing to synchronize. Its body wasn't just in one place, it was desynced across time. "You're not fully here," Jian Mo said quietly. The figure froze. Then its head tilted, too sharply, too far. A cracking sound echoed through the space, not from bone, but from something deeper. Something structural, the figure said. The voice came in layers. One was weak, human, desperate. The other, distorted, cold, watching. Jian Mo didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a slow step to the side, testing the space around him. The floor resisted slightly before allowing the movement, as if it had to recalculate his position. That confirmed it. "This isn't just a memory," he said. "It's being held together." The figure's breathing hitched. A sharp inhale, then it reset. Back to the same position as before. The same movement, the same broken rhythm. Jian Mo's eyes flicked to the coffin. It was still open, but now he could see something he hadn't noticed before. Inside, there was no depth, no interior. Just a distorted surface, like looking into water that reflected a different place entirely, a different version of this same room. "This is the anchor," he murmured. The coffin wasn't just part of the loop, it was the connection point, the place where the real world and this trapped moment overlapped, which meant whoever created this didn't just trap a person, they trapped a point in time itself. The figure suddenly lurched forward, not smoothly, not continuously, but in fragments, each step snapping into existence in jagged intervals like frames missing from reality. "Help me," the human voice pleaded. But beneath it, another voice shifted, watching, listening, learning. Jian Mo's expression hardened. "There are two of you." The figure froze again. For a split second, the distortion intensified, its form blurring, splitting slightly, then snapping back together. The human voice trembled. "I can't get out." Then the other voice, calm, cold, unfamiliar. "You shouldn't interfere." The entire space reacted to that second voice. The walls stretched, the candlelight inverted. Shadows climbed upward instead of falling. Jian Mo didn't move, but his fingers tightened subtly. That voice didn't belong to the man trapped here. It belonged to whatever was holding this place together. "Show yourself," Jian Mo said. Silence. Then everything stopped. The figure, the flickering light, even the subtle distortions in the air. All of it paused for a single unnatural second. Then the world shifted, not around him, but behind everything. Like a second layer of reality sliding into place. Jian Mo felt it instantly, a presence. Vast, not close, not far, just everywhere. The figure in front of him convulsed violently, its body jerking in unnatural angles as if something inside it was being forced to the surface. Its mouth opened wider than it should, and when it spoke again, only one voice came out. "You're inside now." Jian Mo's breathing slowed, controlled, measured. "You're the one maintaining this loop," he said. No answer. But the space reacted. The floor beneath him rippled outward, distorting in concentric waves. The walls stretched further, bending into impossible geometry. The illusion of the room was breaking. Or rather, it was no longer trying to hide. Jian Mo's gaze sharpened as he looked past the figure, past the room, into the distortion itself, and then he saw it, not clearly, not completely, but enough. Something massive. Not in size, but in presence, a structure, a pattern. Something that existed outside the rules of physical space. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a spirit. It was a mechanism, a system designed to hold, repeat, and contain. The realization struck him instantly. "This isn't a prison built for one person," Jian Mo said. "It's a fragment of something larger." The figure in front of him began to collapse inward, its form compressing unnaturally as the loop destabilized further. "Please," the human voice returned, weaker now. "It's taking me." Jian Mo stepped forward. For the first time since entering this space, the resistance was stronger now, like walking through solid air, But he forced through it, his focus locked entirely on the figure. "Listen to me," he said sharply. "Your body is still alive." The figure froze. Just for a second. That was enough. "You're not dead. You're split." Your soul was pulled into this construct while your body remained outside. The man's eyes, distorted, flickering, focused for the first time. Clarity. Brief. Fragile. "Then, why can't I leave?" Jian Mo didn't hesitate. "Because this place isn't letting you." The second presence surged instantly. The space cracked, literally. Thin fractures spread across the air like shattered glass, revealing glimpses of something beyond, something darker, deeper, more abstract. The mechanism was reacting. It had been passive before, observing. Now, it was responding. Jian Mo exhaled slowly. "So that's it," he said. "You're not just holding him." His gaze lifted, locking onto the unseen structure beyond the visible world. "You're studying him." The response was immediate. The entire space convulsed, violently. The loop began to break apart, not cleanly but chaotically. Movements overlapped, reset, accelerated. The figure in front of him flickered between positions, between states, half standing, half collapsed, half erased. The boundary was collapsing, and with it, the man's existence. Jian Mo's eyes hardened. If this continued, there would be nothing left to save. The mechanism wasn't just maintaining the loop anymore, it was ending it. And if the loop ended, so would the soul trapped inside it. Jian Mo reached into his sleeve slowly, deliberately. One talisman left, his last chance. The air around him screamed in distortion as reality itself began to fold inward. Time was running out, and whatever this place truly was, it had finally decided he was a threat. Jian Mo didn't hesitate. The moment the fracture spread across the air, he moved. Not backward, forward, straight toward the collapsing figure. The resistance hit him instantly, like walking into a solid wall made of pressure and distortion. Every step felt wrong, as if the space itself was rejecting him, trying to force him back into a position that no longer existed. But he pushed through, because stopping meant losing him. "Stay with me." Jian Mo's voice cut sharply through the chaos. The man's form flickered violently in front of him, splitting, overlapping, collapsing in and out of itself. One moment he was standing, the next he was half erased, his body dissolving into fragments of light and shadow. "I can't." The man's voice broke apart mid-sentence. The second presence surged. The fractures widened. Reality peeled away in jagged layers, exposing glimpses of something vast and incomprehensible beneath, patterns that twisted beyond logic, structures that weren't meant to be seen. The mechanism was shutting everything down. Jian Mo reached him. The moment his hand made contact, pain, not physical, something deeper. It felt like touching two different realities at once, like his own existence was being stretched across incompatible states. But he didn't pull back. Instead, he grabbed tighter. "Listen to me," Jian Mo said, his voice low but absolute. "You're still anchored to your body. That connection hasn't been severed yet." The man's eyes flickered, momentarily focusing. "Then why? Does it feel like I'm disappearing? Because this place is rewriting you." The truth hit like a blade. The mechanism wasn't just holding him in a loop. It was breaking him down, analyzing, fragmenting, reducing his existence into something it could understand. And once it finished, there would be nothing left to return. Jian Mo's gaze sharpened. No more time. He released the man with one hand and pulled out his final talisman. The paper trembled violently the moment it was exposed to the air, reacting to the instability around them. The inked symbols began to glow faintly, struggling to maintain their form. This wasn't enough, not on its own. Jian Mo clenched his jaw. "Then I'll force it." He pressed the talisman directly against the man's chest. The reaction was immediate. The entire space screamed. Not a sound, but a violent distortion that tore through everything at once. The fractures exploded outward, the looping environment collapsing in on itself as if something had been struck at its core. The man gasped. For the first time, a real breath. Not a loop, not a repetition, a single genuine inhale. The connection was still there. That was all Jian Mo needed. "Hold on to that," he said sharply. "That breath. Don't let it go." The man's body convulsed as the space around them began to tear apart completely. Pieces of the environment broke off into nothingness, dissolving into abstract fragments that no longer resembled anything real. But the mechanism reacted instantly. It pushed back hard. The pressure returned, 10 times stronger than before. The air compressed violently, crushing inward from all directions. The space tried to reset, to force the loop back into place. It was resisting the interference. Jian Mo felt it press against him, not physically, but conceptually, like something trying to overwrite his presence. "You don't belong here." The voice came from everywhere, not through the air, through the structure of the space itself. Jian Mo didn't respond. He bit down on his thumb, hard. Blood welled instantly. With one swift motion, he smeared it across the talisman. The symbols ignited, not with fire, but with something deeper. A surge of raw, unstable energy erupted outward, clashing directly against the mechanism holding the space together. For the first time, it faltered. The pressure broke just slightly, but enough. Jian Mo grabbed the man's arm. "Now!" he pulled. The resistance was immediate and overwhelming. It felt like trying to tear something out of reality itself, like the space was gripping the man from every direction, refusing to let him go. The man screamed, not in pain, but in separation. His body stretched unnaturally, his form splitting between two states, one still trapped, one being dragged free. The boundary was visible now, a thin, shimmering layer, barely perceptible, separating this fractured space from something beyond. The real world. Jian Mo locked onto it instantly. That's the exit. The mechanism reacted violently. The entire space collapsed inward, the remaining fragments of the loop snapping back toward a central point. The unseen structure behind everything surged forward, its presence pressing down like a crushing weight. It wasn't just trying to stop them anymore. It was trying to erase them. Jian Mo's vision blurred as the pressure intensified. His grip tightened instinctively. "Move." He forced himself forward, dragging the man with him step by step. Each movement felt impossible. Each inch gained felt like tearing through something fundamental. The boundary flickered, unstable, fragile. Behind them, the space began to fold completely, reality collapsing into itself as the mechanism abandoned stability in favor of total containment. If it closed, they would be trapped forever. Or worse, they would cease to exist. Jian Mo roared, a rare, raw sound breaking through his control as he drove the last of his strength forward. The talisman burned out. The energy collapsed, and for one final second, the pressure disappeared. Jian Mo lunged. Everything shattered. Light, sound, space itself broke apart into nothing. And then, impact. He hit solid ground hard, dragging the man with him as the world snapped violently back into place. The room, the real room. The candle flickered wildly. The coffin lay open, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then the man beside him inhaled, a full breath, real, alive. Jian Mo stayed where he was, his chest rising slowly as he stared at the open coffin. Behind them, it was gone. The space, the mechanism, the loop, all of it, as if it had never existed. But Jian Mo knew better, because as the silence settled, he could still feel it, faint, distant, watching, and waiting. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. The room had returned to normal, but the silence felt heavier than before, like something unseen still lingered just beyond reach. Jian Mo slowly pushed himself up from the floor, his breathing controlled, his expression unreadable. Beside him, the man lay sprawled half inside the coffin, his chest rising and falling in uneven rhythm. Alive, but not stable. "Don't move," Jian Mo said quietly. The man didn't respond immediately. His eyes were open, but unfocused, as if he were still trying to process where he was, or what he was. Then suddenly, he gasped. A violent inhale, sharp and desperate, like someone surfacing after being underwater for far too long. His body jerked upright. Air rushed into his lungs again and again, too fast, too much, as if he was afraid it would be taken from him at any moment. I'm out," he whispered. His voice trembled. Jian Mo didn't answer. Instead, he watched, carefully, because something was wrong. The man clutched his chest, his breathing gradually slowing, stabilizing. His eyes began to focus, darting around the room, grounding himself in reality. I can feel it. I can breathe," he said, almost laughing in disbelief. Then he looked at Jian Mo. Gratitude flooded his face. "You saved me." "Did I?" The words cut through the moment instantly. Calm, flat, wrong. The man froze. Jian Mo's gaze didn't soften. If anything, it grew colder. "Tell me something," Jian Mo said slowly. "What's the last thing you remember before the coffin was sealed?" The man blinked, caught off guard by the question. I was sick," he said. They said I died. I remember darkness, and then that place. Jian Mo took a step closer, and before that, the man hesitated. Nothing. That was the problem. Jian Mo's eyes narrowed slightly. Not your name, not your family, not how you lived. Silence. The man's expression shifted, subtle at first, confusion, then unease. I don't. His voice faltered. I don't remember. Jian Mo exhaled slowly. That's because those memories aren't yours. The air in the room seemed to tighten instantly. The man stared at him. What are you talking about? Jian Mo didn't look away. What I pulled out of that space wasn't a soul returning to its body. A pause. It was something else. The man's breathing hitched again, but this time not from panic, from something deeper, something instinctive. No, that's not possible. But even as he said it, his hands began to tremble. Fragments. Something was breaking. Inside him. Jian Mo continued, his voice steady, mercilessly precise. That space wasn't just trapping you. It was analyzing you, breaking you down into pieces it could understand. He gestured slightly toward the coffin, and when it started collapsing, it didn't release you. Another step closer, it reconstructed you. Silence crashed into the room. The man's eyes widened. His breathing slowed, not naturally but abruptly, controlled, too controlled. No, he whispered, but his voice, it wasn't the same anymore. It was steadier, colder. Jian Mo saw it instantly. That thing, the mechanism, Jian Mo said quietly, it didn't just observe you, it learned. The man's head tilted slightly, the same unnatural angle Jian Mo had seen inside the loop. A faint crack echoed, not from bone, but from something deeper. I'm alive, the man said. Each word came out with perfect clarity. Too perfect, too precise. Jian Mo didn't react. You're breathing, he replied. That doesn't mean you're human. The candle flickered violently. The air shifted. For a brief moment, the room felt like it overlapped again with that other space. The man's expression changed. Not fear, not confusion. Recognition. Understanding. Slowly, he lowered his hands from his chest. His posture straightened, and when he spoke again, both voices returned. Layered, human, and something else. You brought me out. A pause. Faster than expected. Jian Mo's eyes hardened. There it was, confirmation. What did you do to him? Jian Mo asked. The thing wearing the man's body didn't answer directly. Instead, it looked down at its own hands, flexing its fingers slowly as if testing them. Fragmented, incomplete, inefficient, it murmured. Then it looked back up. But this is better. The presence in the room shifted again, subtle but undeniable. That same vast, distant awareness Jian Mo had felt inside the loop was here now, not fully, but partially. A piece of it had crossed over. You didn't escape, Jian Mo said quietly. You were sent. Silence. Then, a faint smile formed on the man's face. Wrong. Inhuman. Not sent, it replied, aloud. The word lingered, heavy, final. And in that moment, Jian Mo understood the real danger. The coffin wasn't a prison, it was a door, and he had just opened it. Jian Mo didn't move. He didn't reach for another talisman, didn't step back, didn't attack, because he already understood something far more important than survival in that moment. This thing wasn't here to kill him. Not yet. The man's body stood only a few steps away, perfectly still now. No trembling, no instability. Every movement that had once been fragmented, delayed, broken was gone, replaced by something precise, complete. You're stabilizing, Jian Mo said quietly. The thing tilted its head slightly, observing him with an intensity that felt clinical, detached, analytical. Correction, it replied. I am adapting. Its voice no longer struggled between layers. The distortion was still there, but controlled now, woven seamlessly beneath the surface of something that sounded almost human. Almost. Jian Mo's gaze shifted briefly to the coffin. It was empty, completely empty. No residual energy, no connection, no trace of the overlapping space. The door had closed, which meant whatever had come through was no longer tethered to it. You let the construct collapse, Jian Mo said. Not a question, a conclusion. The thing smiled faintly. There was nothing more to extract, it said. The subject reached structural limits. Subject, not person, not victim. Jian Mo's expression hardened. And the original soul, for the first time, a pause, not hesitation, calculation. Then, disassembled. The word landed without weight, without emotion, as if it were the most natural outcome. Jian Mo said nothing, but something in the air shifted, subtle, dangerous. You're not here by accident, he said after a moment. That mechanism, whatever it is, it doesn't act randomly. The thing's eyes remained fixed on him, unblinking. Correct. A step forward, not threatening, but deliberate. Observation requires proximity. Jian Mo didn't move. So that's what I am now? He asked. A new subject? Another pause. Then, a slight shake of the head. No. The answer came clean, immediate. You are a variable. That was worse, much worse. Jian Mo exhaled slowly. Behind him, the candle flickered again, unstable now, reacting to a presence it couldn't fully register. This world isn't ready for something like you, Jian Mo said. The thing's gaze shifted slightly, scanning the room, the walls, the air, like it was seeing more than just physical space. Assessment pending, it replied. Then its eyes returned to him. But it is compatible. The implication settled heavily. It wasn't invading, it was evaluating, testing, learning. Jian Mo's fingers curled slightly at his side. If you stay here, he said, his voice quieter now, colder, you'll start affecting things. People, space, reality itself. The thing didn't deny it, didn't confirm it. Instead, it asked, is that undesirable? Jian Mo didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, he didn't know. Not fully, but he knew enough. Yes. The word was firm, certain. For the first time, the thing seemed to consider that. Not emotionally, not morally, but functionally. Then it nodded once, a small, precise movement. Understood. Silence followed, heavy, unresolved. Then it turned, just slightly, as if preparing to leave. Jian Mo's eyes narrowed. You're just going to walk away? The thing paused. Without looking back, it answered, further observation requires broader data. A step forward, toward the doorway. But this interaction, a brief pause, was valuable. The candle flame bent sharply as it passed. The air distorted, just for a second, around its form, then stabilized again, like reality itself was adjusting to its presence. Jian Mo watched it reach the threshold, watched as something not meant to exist in this world, stepped into it anyway, and just before it disappeared into the darkness beyond, it stopped, turned its head slightly. Not enough to fully face him, just enough. One correction, it said. Jian Mo's gaze sharpened. You described the coffin as a door. A pause. Then, that is inaccurate. The air tightened, the silence deepened. It was a test, and then it was gone. The room fell still once more. The candle flickered weakly. The coffin sat empty, as if none of it had ever happened. But Jian Mo remained where he was, unmoving, his eyes fixed on the doorway long after the presence had vanished, because now he understood something far worse than anything he had faced before. That thing wasn't the danger. It was just the beginning. Somewhere beyond this world, something had been watching, learning, and now it knew the way in. The room was quiet again, too quiet. Jian Mo stood alone beside the empty coffin, the faint candlelight casting long, fragile shadows across the walls. Everything looked normal, still, untouched, but nothing felt the same, because something had crossed over. Not a ghost, not a spirit, something that didn't belong to life or death. And now, it was out there, walking, watching, learning. Jian Mo slowly turned his gaze toward the doorway where it had disappeared. For a brief moment, it almost felt like he could still see it standing there, observing, calculating, waiting for its next step. He exhaled quietly. This isn't over. But the question wasn't what it would do next. The real question was, what would happen when it understood more? When it learned how humans think, how they feel, how they hide, when it no longer needed to observe, but could become. Jian Mo looked down at the coffin one last time, empty, silent, as if it had never held anything at all. But he knew the truth. That wasn't a prison. It wasn't even a door. It was proof. Proof that something beyond this world had found a way to reach in, to take, and now to send something back. He stepped away slowly, the floor creaking softly beneath his feet. And as the candle flickered one final time, a thought settled in, cold, quiet, and impossible to ignore. What if that thing wasn't unique? What if there were more? More constructs, more tests, more fragments waiting to cross over? And worse, what if they were already here, watching, blending in, learning what it means to be human, better than humans themselves? Jian Mo stopped at the doorway, but he didn't leave, because one final question lingered, heavier than all the others. If something could take a person's soul, break it apart, and rebuild it into something new, then how would you know that the person standing in front of you was still human? Or just something pretending to be? And if the difference disappears, would you even want to know the truth?
Shadows crawl where the light won't go. A silent wind, it starts to grow.